Hello everyone, so MM and BM Dark Ranger have been nerfed. So the MM nerf is around 2 to 3% depending on the situation, and the BM nerf is around 4 to 5% overall across both single target and Mythic Plus scenarios. So depending on sort of the boss you look at, I mean basically they took the top 4 performers in the raid, depending on exactly the percentile you look at, but for the most part they're like the top 4 performers. And they gave them anywhere from a 3 to 2 to 5% nerf, MM copying the smallest nerf of them all. That's going to put them probably, somewhere around, I would think, sort of upper quartile, like closer to the center here, which is probably reasonable, right? The max potential of BM and MM is obviously extremely high, and that's also going to end up being still among the top specs. So like high roll potential is still some of the highest in the game for these specs. But on average, they're going to end up really, really good specs, especially where it's not just about the overall damage, it's like how the damage is delivered and when. On difficult fights like Nexus King, both BM and MM are excellent specs, especially BM. That's still going, even with a 4% nerf, that's still going to be one of the best specs, if not the best spec on this entire fight, especially considering that Frost and Arcane are also getting nerfed around 3%. And Dimensions as well. I think, Sub-Rogue might be the new king of pure boss damage on this particular fight. Obviously, it's not, a lot of it is phase 3 boss damage specifically, but, these are still really, really good specs for exactly this, with all 4 of these specs getting nerfed to one degree or another. So, we're nerfed, and getting nerfed obviously sucks, but I think it was mostly pretty deserved from rating. And Mythic Plus we'll look at in a moment. And, if you put in the effort and everything, you'll still be a really, really strong contributor in the raid. And I don't really think there's much reason to do. In Mythic Plus, I pulled up some of my runs from every dungeon here, a bunch of between I pulled up some lower keys by accident here, but 19s and 20s. I'm still 19. Definitely doing some of the highest 100 keys at the moment. And, if we subtract 4% from this, I'm still pretty much beating... these are some of the best DKs in the world and pretty comfortably still beating them even with a 4% nerf. The size by which I'm beating them is obviously much smaller. But another thing to note here is boss damage, right? Boss damage is really where BM makes a huge difference. And so it's not just, overall, it's still likely the top Frost DKs, especially as they're getting nerfed as well. Tiny bit less, right? But especially on boss damage, pure time save value, it really, really, I still think BM Dark Ranger is probably the single best spec for this sort of the overall damage profile, including single target, really, really strong for that. I think an interesting conundrum is going to be in do you play Dark Ranger or Pack Leader now? Because obviously right now, some of these dungeons are Pack Leader, and some of them are Dark Ranger. I think the 100% Pack Leader dungeon is Arakara, and then it's the jury is out a little bit, or it can depend a bit on comp and your preference and group and all that stuff. On dungeons like Floodgate, you can sort of go either way, and halls to some extent, maybe Priory. I think that those dungeons that are sort of on the fence between Dark Ranger and Pack Leader, those are now going to be more firmly Pack Leader. So at least that's my prediction. I think, Halls is going to start becoming a Pack Leader key. Floodgate, 100% a Pack Leader key by now. Priory, I'm not quite so sure about, but I think it might be a Pack Leader key now as well. And Arakara is going to remain a Pack Leader key as well. And for the other dungeons, I still think they're 100%, Gambit, Street, Stormbreaker, and Ecodome. I still think those are pretty much locked in Dark Ranger keys. I think maybe there could be an argument for Ecodome, but my gut says that we're still looking at Dark Ranger for that. In terms of BM versus MM sort of overall balance, the delta is sort of swinging 2%. BM is still clearly dominant over MM in Mythic Plus. And in the raid, they're really, really close now. I guess, if you do the math in a very strict manner, MM ends up maybe a little bit higher, but I still think it's at the point where you can just kind of play whichever one speaks to you the most, because, both specs are some of the best in the game with excellent damage profiles. You can't really go too wrong with either for every boss. So, I'd just say, play the spec you like in the raid, the one that resonates with you. For Mythic Plus, I do think BM still has a pretty substantial advantage over marksmanship once you consider single target and so on. So, yeah, you know, we get nerfed. Getting nerfed sucks, but overall, I think it's deserved. I still think we're in a really great spot. Are we in the meta? Are we in the S+++ tier? I don't know. Like the real life data we'll see in the coming weeks. But I still think we're in a pretty good spot. So, you know, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.